Hi everyone, Danita here, coming to you from Flin Flon's NORVA with some tips and tricks on how to level up your line art game. That's enough of my face, let's go to table view and get creative. As an artsy individual, the number one thing I get asked is, how did you do that? That usually referring to something like this. Now, I know a finished piece can look a little intimidating, but becoming a doodle master is actually a lot easier than you might think. All you need is a bit of patience, some practice, and 4 super simple techniques. First things first. Let's grab a writing utensil and some paper. If you have fancy drawing pens, that's great, but any pen, pencil, marker, or crayon can produce awesome line art. I'll be using a Uniball Super Ink because it's my go-to doodle pen and working on this handy-dandy template. If you'd like to draw along, you can download a copy of the template using the link below the video. But if you're feeling adventurous today, grab some scrap paper, break out a notebook, or doodle on the back of the nearest napkin. You know, whatever works. Let's start with the easiest technique, hatching. Hatchwork is basically just a fancy way of saying drawing lines. Don't worry about getting your lines too straight or even. We're just practicing making some lines here. Try making them closer together or farther apart to get different effects. Now, since this is going to be your most used technique, there's a couple of variations that you'll see a lot. One is called a trailing edge hatch, where you start on one side and just flick your pen off at the end of each stroke. Next, using the trailing edge, we can create a fan. You start at a single point and fan out your lines. This is great for if you're doing feathers or filling in some hair, or you just want to draw attention to a certain point on your page. While we're drawing lines, let's have some fun and do some warped lines. These are great for if you're doing some textures in clothing or wood or even water. It's also a great way to fill in some backgrounds. Just draw a single squiggly line and then follow it with your rest of your lines. A fun way to change up your hatching is to break up the lines. Kind of think of like a dashed line and drag your pen. If your ink starts skipping, that's a great way to know you're doing it right. This is a fun texture for backgrounds too. I also use it a lot for clothing or for brickwork. Now that we're done with hatching, let's move on to cross hatching. Does it look familiar? It should. It is just hatching that you are going to layer up in multiple directions. So we're going to draw our lines, switch directions, and make kind of a tic-tac-toe board. Cross-hatching is perfect for any kind of filling in of backgrounds that are going to be large because it's quick and easy and it makes a nice little texture. Just like at hatching, we've got a trailing edge that will open up the edge of your crosshatch and give it kind of a more airy feel. Again, we're going to go in the same direction and just cross those lines. Your multi-layered hatching is just drawing more lines, but we're going to layer it up. You can take as many times as you want to make it darker and more textured. Just like in hatching, we can warp our lines, and this is great if you want to add dimension to your piece. So follow an outer edge to make some curved lines, and again, just layer them up. Just like with hatching, we can break up our cross-hatching to get some really cool effects. I like to use this for ice or if you're doing a piece of brickwork. It is also really great for just adding a bit of texture to clothing, to pretty much anything you need to do. Again, you just multi-layer your lines, whichever angle you want. Get some short lines, some long lines. And there we go, simple. Now we've had enough of doing some straight lines. Let's do some scribbling. This one is going to be the easiest that you've ever done. The more squiggles you make, the better you're doing. If you want to make your scribbling more even-handed, it's great for making a pattern. Try doing loops like you're making a phone cord. This is fun to fill in with hair. For a slightly different look, try making your scribbles long and sharp and scribble in lines. Another common technique you'll see with scribbling is making sort of a pattern. Start with some swirls and just layer them up until you're happy with how it looks. Don't worry about being perfect, we're just practicing on these wonderful little circles. Remember cross-hatching? We can use it with our scribbling as well. Scribble up a base layer. I'm going to use the sharp edge because I feel like it today. And then switch your direction and scribble some more. Ta-da! So easy. Now for our last one, stippling or dots. I have a love-hate relationship with stippling because it is so easy to do. You just dot, 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 dot all over your page. But it takes forever. This is a great pattern to add to any of your drawings for some awesome texture. It's going to look great when it's done. But pro tip, try to be gentle with your dots. I know it's tempting to stab your page sometimes, but if you're going to be filling in a large area, both your hand and your pen will thank you for keeping it light. Let's check out some variations. A multi-weight stippling is going to give you a gradient type look. Start with just using the tip of your pen to make some very tiny little dots. As you go, make them closer together to get a bit of a darker look. To get your bigger dots, make little circles that kind of scribble over top of each other. And there you go, multi-weights. Another common way to use dots is to form a pattern with them. In this example, I've started with a small dot that gets larger as it goes towards the edge. Super simple. This is a really great idea for backgrounds when you want something on your page that's going to be simple and fill up your space without being distracting from your actual picture. Next, let's take a look at the open speckles. Open speckles are just circles in varying sizes. They kind of look like bubbles, but it's really great if you want to get a perforated edge on maybe some concrete, or if you want to get a fun look at the inside of a water glass. They also make great stars and bubbles. The most popular use of stippling is going to be a faux halftone. This is going to look like you have printed your artwork out in like a manga magazine. We're going to start with a line of dots and fill in some more as you go. They don't have to be perfectly evenly spaced, but it's great if you can work up a pattern for this. Ta-da! All done. That's your basic toolkit. I told you it was easy. All that's left to do is practice. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do 1,000 swatches. Doing an exercise like this is a great way to warm up your hand and try out new styles, but let's be honest, filling in circle swatches can get pretty boring, and it's hard sometimes to imagine what something like this is going to look like on a piece of finished art. That's why I suggest you ditch these swatches and practice your new skills on coloring pages. I prepped this line work ahead of time. You can download a copy through the link in the description below, but any coloring page will work. Let's see some swatches in action. Filling in empty line art is a great way to experiment with new inking styles. It's way more fun than swatches. You get to see how different techniques will look when applied to artwork, and your friends will be totally impressed by your awesome coloring skills. Plus, if you make a mistake, no one cares. It's just a coloring page. Scrap it and start a new one. Okay, here's a few bonus tips while you watch me doodle. Take your time. NORVA's editing genius here is going to make it look like I did this in like 10 seconds, but for the record, inking is time consuming. Don't try to finish a piece all in one setting. Line art is sort of like running a marathon with your hand. You need to train your muscles before you can tackle a full page. Focus on a small section at a time or print off your practice pages at half size like I did. There's no need to suffer for great art. Twist and turn your page to whatever angle will be the most comfortable for your hand. Remember to take lots of breaks, be mindful of your posture, and do some hand stretches. Don't want to develop that dreaded hand cramp. Having trouble finding time to practice? Doodle during commercial breaks, while you're talking on the phone, or while listening to your favorite podcasts. Keep practicing, and before you know it, you'll be a doodle master. Thanks for doodling with me today. I hope you enjoyed these tips and tricks on how to level up your line art. If you're into sharing, take a snapshot of your art and tag us on Facebook and Instagram at NORVA Center and at Flittermouse Art. We'd love to see your masterpieces. Shout out to Flin Flon NORVA Center and Manitoba Safe at Home for having me out today. Make sure you check out all the other videos on NORVA TV for more creative content. Stay safe, stay creative, and have fun. Bye!